Peace, everyone. Can you guys hear me? Anybody? If you can hear me, throw a 1 in the chat. Peace, everyone. Can you guys hear me? All right. Yay. Happy Sunday, everybody. Welcome in. Welcome in. Hi, Jamie. Hi, Sherry. Who else we got in here? About to get into it. I was having some difficulties, but I'm here now. So thank you, everybody, for coming in. This is Titty Talk. Yes, I had to come up with a clever name. It all started with me talking about breastfeeding, and I said I was going to talk about it on here. And Bay Area said, well, why don't you set up a panel? And I'm like, yes, let's do it. So I have some guests in here that are patiently waiting to join, and we're just going to have a little conversation about, breastfeeding and what it's about, some people's experiences, and also I'm sure we'll get into some motherhood talk as well. Please host a page, share the video. If you're not already following, click that follow button, and let's get into it. All right. So I'm going to add all these lovely ladies. We have Bay Area Bread in the building.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. How you doing?
Can you guys hear me in the chat? Hello.
Happy Sunday. Hey, Queen Nikki. All right, so Bay Area Bread. We have simplyymoii. Hi, simplyymoii. Happy Sunday. Can you guys hear her?
I can't hear her. I can't hear you, hun.
It might help to unmute. Sorry, guys.
There we go.
Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday. And last but not least, we have Michelle Renee. Hi, Michelle Renee. How you ladies doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm just figuring out this whole StreamYard thing. This is my first time. It seems really basic and easy to navigate. So we're in here. I'm excited. So as most of you know, some of you that just joined or you're new here, I actually had a son in August, and this is my second breastfeeding journey. The first time I have breastfeeding was in 2016, and I wasn't able to continue because I just wasn't producing, and baby was super duper fussy, and it was like such a really hard experience for me, and it was really sad because I felt like this needed to happen. So now I'm 5 years later, I have my son. He's 3 months now, and he's breastfeeding, and I'm just going through some of the trials and tribulations. So I wanted to bring some moms on here to kind of share their experiences and share any tips that they may have. One of the main questions I have is, how long did you breastfeed for, and what are some of the challenges that you face, and how did you overcome them? So if we can start with Bay Area, give us a little insight.
Well, my kids are in their 20s, so my experience is a little archaic. But in the 90s, I guess it wasn't. Well, it's just it's still stressed on breastfeeding as long as you can. But I was surrounded by a couple of old wives' tales saying, they only really need it. It's only beneficial for like the first month, which, I read later on, it's actually beneficial up until like 6 months. To me, anything past 6 months, it's hard to wean. I had so my ex-husband's sister breastfed for like almost 5 years. And it got to a point where he would literally walk up to her and pull up her shirt. And it's like, that's not really a healthy mother-son relationship. And I mean, now he's an adult now, and I'm pretty sure it's fine because he's off in the Air Force and he's married and doing all that stuff. But, to me, that wasn't healthy. I breastfed my son, I breastfed him for 3 months because I went back to work and I didn't want to pump while I was at work. I was only 22 when I had him. So it's like, let's just get this over with and, be done. And I couldn't hold the conventional way like this. I couldn't cradle him. I had to hold him like in the football position. which because I went up to a freaking G cup. So I had a hard time holding him correctly, but he did get what he needed and we did bond. Um, it's just, everybody around me had not seen that before. So of course I was getting teased about it. And I'm young and I'm like naive and stuff, and I was feeling self-conscious about it. And I felt it was like because of that, it was like passing that emotions on to him. So that
Mm,
was like another reason why I stopped it at 3 months. But I started him on solids really early. Both of my kids, I started them on solids really early because I like to sleep, and putting them on solids early was helping me sleep. So, especially through the night because my son had a hard time sleeping through the night. But
right.
with my daughter, I couldn't because she was premature and she couldn't latch. So my nipples like were too big for her tiny little mouth, so she couldn't latch.
Um,
So I basically pumped until I dried out, and then that was that. She was drinking formula, and I know like the whole thing with formula is an issue with a lot because it's expensive.
right.
So like World Health Organization, most pediatricians and all that encourage the breast milk, encourage the breastfeeding because formula is basically too expensive to feed. But you know, I I think after like 3 months, mixing it having both is beneficial, having
Yeah,
both of them. And then the formula is heavier, they gain weight a lot faster with the formula. So I was always an advocate of formula, at least until they get cow's milk. So um but yeah, I mean, I was young, and I was like, just push whatever will help me sleep at night, will help them grow, helps them get full faster, and
right.
um, but I'm pretty sure, like, if I would have had them later, I would have had more, I would have been more mindful of things like that. I like love. I'm sure, having your smaller children now, you're more mindful of things like that. So,
Yeah,
you want to be more, should I say, like a, not that I wasn't not what that I was a bad mother, but I wasn't, trying to do the different things that to make me feel like a better mother. My mom gave me as much guidance as she could, but she had me at 17. So
right.
the advice I was getting from my mom was like, when you know how old I was the age she was when I was my kid's age. So she was like 19 when she had her 2-year old or whatever. um but yeah, it's um it's a different story. Each, you're going to get a different story from each woman, because of the different ages and the different experiences and the different cultures,
Right.
of course, because you're going to get, you're always going to get the advice from mom, grandma, auntie, or whatever, and they're going to be different, with each culture.
Right. And that was my biggest thing was I know that you were saying that your kids were older, but I wanted to get the experience of someone who had done this a while ago as well, because I feel like back then we didn't have as much as we have now, like these hand pumps and all these different tools that you can use to pump with. A lot of
Right.
people didn't have that back then. So it's like, well, what did you do? Because for me, trying to use a pump, it's very painful and then it throws off my milk supply. So yeah, I get the milk I need to store or whatever, but then when he gets on to feed, it's like a struggle. So that's been my experience with as far as pumping goes so far. So
Yeah, and see, back then the electric ones weren't probably as efficient as they are now. So I did a lot of hand, which like would cramp up my hands. And then,
yeah.
and of course, the more you fed, the more you produced. So like my clothes were stained, and those stains do not go away. They're forever. So, that's another thing, is trying to control
Yep.
that part of it, and it's and especially when you're young, it's like, what the hell is all this, you know?
Right, right. You just want to feed and just keep it moving.
Exactly, exactly. I was in my 20s. I'm like, I got stuff to do, man.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
We're gonna move on to Michelle Renee. Hi, Michelle. How you doing? Thanks for
Hey, how
making
are
it.
you? Absolutely. I wouldn't
I'm
miss it for the
great.
world. I was excited about coming and talking about it. So, my experience has kind of been all over the map. Because when I first started trying to have kids, I was told I couldn't have any.
Oh,
And I
okay.
was probably mid 20s or whatever. And I had my first child in my late 20s. Um,
Okay.
and I had to do in vitro fertilization because that's when all of
Oh,
this, all
wow.
that craze started. So my first child was born in vitro. My second child was born IUI, and then my last baby, she just showed up. So my
Oh,
experience was
okay.
just kind of all over the
What
map.
a blessing.
I
Yes,
know,
you are
I
meant
know.
to
And
be a
she's the
mom.
only girl in the entire family. We have all boys, and she is the princess. So and the youngest. So my very first son is adopted because when I was told I couldn't have any, I adopted my first child. He was 8 when I adopted him. I did not adopt a newborn, so I didn't have the experience of feeding a newborn because I just when I was going through the adoption phase, I was just like, wow, all of the older kids are always left behind. I think I want to adopt an older child. So I did, and he was my first experience. The only thing I had to deal with him was that he was lactose intolerant. So
Uh-huh. Yep.
that's all I
Mm-hmm.
had to deal with him. When I had my first son with in vitro fertilization, he decided to come 3 months early.
Oh,
Oh,
So, as you
wow.
know, your milk does not come in at that point. So,
That's interesting.
I
yeah.
went through like feeling guilty and crying incessantly because I was just like, I need to, provide nourishment for my baby, and I can't because he came early, and then I was dealing with the fact that he was early, so it was just so much wrapped in that. And I was just really, really focused on getting my breast milk to come in. So I would literally pump every day, 4 or 5 times a day, to get my milk to come in. And then when it finally came in, it was crazy, just like you talked about, stains everywhere, milk everywhere. I was overproducing because they were also giving me a medication that caused the lactation as well.
Wow.
So it was
Okay.
just an overabundance of milk. So my
Mm.
first child, he breastfed or had breast milk, we'll just say that, until he was about 1 years old. I never had to put him to breast because I had so much stored that I had to use the stored milk because my milk was coming in like so fast.
Okay. Yeah, and
Um,
that's sorry to interrupt, but that's a good
mhm,
way to wean too.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have that problem with him. The
Mhm.
second child was more of a mix. So he came early too, but he had to come early because of the first baby that came so early. I could not deliver my children full term, so they all had to come at least a month early to avoid me going into labor, active labor, because my uterus could rupture and I could lose my child. So I could never go full term. So I always had to do some sort of priming the pump, if you will, and
Mm.
then be able to breastfeed. My second child was probably the one that got the actual experience of breastfeeding. I also had to do football style because I do have full breasts. I've got
Mhm.
I got tits under the armpits kind of thing going on.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So I literally had to hold him like a football so that I could
Mhm.
feed him. Um, but when my baby girl came, um, I couldn't breastfeed her, and my milk never came in, and it was a disaster for me. Like it was very disheartening because she was the last baby, and you always want to do so much with the last one when especially when you know it's your last child.
Mm.
Um,
Mhm.
but it was also because I was advanced in age as well. So my daughter was born, I was 42 when I had her. So
Wow.
I was also
Okay.
perimenopausal, so I had a lot at play. So I wasn't able to breastfeed her, and she didn't get any breast milk. She was a full formula baby.
Mhm.
But she was also the expensive formula baby because she
Yes.
was lactose intolerant and soy intolerant. So that
Oh.
was a very expensive process, but by then, I'm 42. So many years in advance, they've got the formula that mirrors breast milk now with all the breast milk proteins. And at that point, she was kind of getting the better of both worlds. So yeah, the whole breastfeeding thing is it's a phenomenon. I'll tell you that much, and it's never the same twice, never. So I just think that it's something that you got to decide in your mind if you're going to do it. And it doesn't matter how they get the milk, as long as they get it, to be quite honest. That was my doctor's whole thing. He was old school, he was from Africa. So he said the babies must have the breast milk. I don't care how they get the milk, as long as they get the
Mhm.
milk. And he was
Yeah.
really, really on me about that. So I didn't feel bad about pumping and then having to give it to them by bottle. But as long as they get it, I think that that's
Right.
the most important part of it.
I agree. Okay. Thank you for sharing. I have some questions, but I'm gonna wait until Simply Ma is up next.
Mhm.
Hey,
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for joining.
no problem. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
So I have two children. One is 1.5, and the other one is 4. Both experiences were super different. So with my first son, I was in this la la land, and everyone told me, "Oh, it's so natural to breastfeed. Baby's gonna come out and latch right away, and it's gonna be great, right? Because it's your breast and it's your baby, so it must happen. It's gonna work, right?" And that's not how it happened for me at all. My son was a week late. He came out, and he was hungry, but he couldn't latch at all. My nipple was too big. My nipples are slightly introverted. I couldn't get him to latch. I have bigger breasts, so I was doing football too. Um, and I tried with the lactation consultants. So now they have lactation consultants inside the hospital that will help you to breastfeed, and
Mhm.
they'll tell you like, don't worry, you'll get it before you leave. No,
Right.
I didn't get it before I left.
Mhm.
It even got to a point where my son was getting so lethargic, they had to give him glucose because he just wasn't getting enough from the breast. But they were
Yeah.
insisting that you try, and I just couldn't. It didn't sit well with me to constantly be giving him these little glucose tablets to bring him back, like if I could give him formula. And I remember reading stories about kids that would dry out because their parents just had this mommy guilt of not being able to breastfeed.
Hmm.
So instead of going to formula and feeding, they just kept trying with breasts, and essentially kids would starve out, right? And I just remember
Mhm.
thinking that, and I was like, okay, I'll try the formula. But we tried for almost 3 months, and it was painful. Both of us were constantly crying every time we went to breastfeed. It was not a happy place at all. I was like, come on, you could get it. And he was like looking at me like, oh, I can't. And I was just
Mhm.
like, but it's supposed to happen. And I just felt so guilty. Like, I felt like a failure. I just gave birth to a whole human being, but I still felt like a failure because I couldn't breastfeed. And I
Mhm.
remember like calling my cousin and texting my cousins and my friends and being like, okay, so what can I do? And I was drinking mother's milk tea, and I was
Mhm.
eating all the oats and the peanut butter and drinking a
Hmm.
whole bunch of water and going into the shower and massaging my armpits and my breasts and trying to do it all to make sure that it would come. But
Hmm.
we just weren't getting it. And we finally got to a point where it was like, my doctor was like, if it's not a happy place for you and it's not a happy place for him, and he's already getting the formula, why not just like fill the bond? Just forget about the breast and just go with the formula. At least you
Mhm.
guys can still have that time together where you're feeding, you have that eye contact, he's
Hmm.
getting to see you. It can be a great thing rather than you guys just going through the challenges. Where my
Right.
daughter, she came out hungry as ever, latched right away. It was like, what? This can
Right.
happen? It was great, but I hated the feeling. I
Hmm.
could
Mm.
not get over the feeling. It was the worst feeling ever. And I still have mommy guilt to this day. I feel like I should have just thugged it out. It would have went away. But I went again like 2.5 months, and it was just bad. I would turn on the TV. I would have my phone in my hand. I would do so many things to try and distract myself while I was breastfeeding, and I just couldn't get over it. Like the sensation, I have a really heavy letdown too. So when I had my letdown, I would get all these tingles, and it was like pins and needles, and it was just no. There was points where even she would be breastfeeding and I would just have to like pull her off. And I know how bad that sounds, but I was like at a point mentally where I was like, okay, I can't even distract myself anymore. Um,
Mhm.
so after about 2.5 months, I took her off the breast. I just couldn't anymore for myself, and I thought about relactating because of that mommy guilt. So I thought about going back, but then I thought about my son and all that I went through with that, and I was like, no, I don't want to go through that trauma. Honestly, breast is great. We know that it's natural. We know that it comes from us. Yes, breast is best, but fed is really best.
Yes.
Not necessarily breast. There's so
Exactly, exactly. It's a peace of mind thing too. You have to be right in your own state of mind, or or else whatever mess you have in your head is going to pass on to the milk and pass on to the baby.
yeah,
Yeah, the
So
energy.
yeah,
Yeah, and the
the
stress
draining.
milk
It's
anxiety
from
or
coming in.
mentally draining.
whatever anxiety, it's
Mhm.
going to, the baby's going to get it through the milk. So, whether it's formula, cereal. I gave my daughters, well, granted, yes, it was too early, but I let her try cereal at 2 months. She spit it out, but she got some in there, and it was fine. But I was one of those that, hey, if the opportunities you looked right, I do it. I fed them stuff early. They ate rice. 'Cause we're Filipino and we're always down to feeding our kids rice. So they ate rice like at 6 months old. You know, that's
I'm
just
nervous about that because
yeah, and I get that. Yeah.
my son, he's 3 months, but he's like 20 pounds, 25 inches. Like he's a big baby.
That's the
So
breast though.
he's constantly feeding like every hour almost, sometimes even sooner
Yeah,
than that.
see, and that's another thing. They don't get full off the breast milk. So you have to supplement. And in order for you to renew yourself, because you need a chance to renew yourself and refresh and rest and all that, and you're running yourself ragged if you're always feeding, right? So you need to, give yourself a chance to it's
I'm laughing at additional
Relax
tea.
right
I'm
now.
sorry. He said, "Can I have some milk?" I can't help you with that. I'm sorry. Maybe somebody else can.
So this is funny. My mom actually just put in the comments that I do not believe in
yeah,
breastfeeding,
I
Oh,
just
hi,
saw
Simply
that.
Mo's
You
mom.
know
right?
what? It's not for everyone. It's
No,
not for
and
everyone.
when you were talking earlier and you were saying, you came from a different generation, it's funny. Like I'm surprised that nobody mentioned the fact that of their titties sagging. Like for my mom, that was one of the things that she always told us. Like she was like, "Listen, no,
They'll
no,
never be
no.
the same.
Yeah, my breast will never be the
Oh,
same. I am
definitely.
sorry."
Oh my God, yes, yes,
So
yes.
and you know what, even though I didn't breastfeed for that long, that deflated look is so real. Like when your breasts look like Pamela Anderson in the morning and then baby comes and feeds, and then after it's
Bag of
like,
sand.
Yeah,
wow,
Right.
what
yeah.
happened here?
We have a question from Lady Casey 100, and she asked, "Any great weight loss experiences?" I'll share mine. I was about 210 pounds when I had my son, and literally 2 days later, I was back down to 180. Like my snapback game was crazy. With my daughter, it was not like that. I had to get a
Yeah.
personal trainer and get myself together, and I actually went vegan, which helped. So now I am more plant based. I do eat fish, but other than that, we are plant based, and that's another thing too. Finding the right things to suit the baby's needs, because like Bay Area said, everything goes through the milk. So I've noticed that if I eat certain things like broccoli, cauliflower, he gets
Ooh,
super
gassy.
gassy,
Mm-hmm.
super
Yeah,
duper gassy,
yeah.
like screaming
Hmm.
at night. He was colicky, but I did
Yeah.
have a good experience with the weight part, and the first time that didn't happen. What about you ladies? How was your weight like after
So
breastfeeding
I
and
had, so I did, mine was the same. Snapback game was crazy in the beginning. But that was because I was in my 20s. And I'm just going to tell you, ladies, having a baby post 30, you are battling other things.
Oh,
So yes,
definitely.
the
Yes.
breastfeeding and the pumping and all of that will help you
Mm-hmm.
come back, but it just won't be as quick. And
But
then when I had my
also,
daughter when I was 42, I'm still sporting some of that weight. So and
good,
it
good
has
girl.
been we're 5 years later, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So it depends. I think that it's different for everybody's situation, but I also the doctor also had me wearing like abdominal supports as well, because all of my babies were also C-section babies, so that was different as well. So my weight,
Mm.
my snapback was a little bit different just because of the C-sections as well. I will tell you that if you are a mom that latches the baby to breast, like when she was, you were speaking about all of the different sensations, um, you will feel that pull in your waistline as
Yes.
well
Your
while the
uterus
baby is
contracts
feeding.
while you're
So it
breastfeeding.
does
Yes.
have you
Yes, it
Mhm.
to
does.
like you are truly, truly like experiencing the whole mother nature experience. Trust me.
Like a
Yes, and
menstrual
when you have a
cramp.
C-section, you're
Mm,
right, because my first was a C-section and my
mm,
second is a VBAC. When you breastfeed with the C-section, it is a complete, it's almost like labor again the first time
mhm.
you do it,
Oh.
because your contractions,
Mm-hmm.
everybody's uterus contracts when they're breastfeeding, but because you're so fresh out of surgery, it's like you're feeling this through all the layers of your skin. It's definitely completely different.
Yeah.
And something that I would recommend that every woman that gets a C-section and especially is going to breastfeed, tie your stomach, ladies.
Yeah, you have to
Oh,
bind
Um,
yourself.
wow.
yes, I
I never knew
remember
that.
Wow, that's
That's an old
interesting.
African
it's
thing,
an old wives' tale just to
and but
flatten your
do it.
stomach. But
Hmm.
I remember my mom came to the hospital and I was like, I got up and I felt like my guts were just going to fall out of the bottom of me. And I was holding my stomach and I couldn't laugh. I couldn't do anything. And she tied
Hmm.
me up, and that was the best thing she could have ever done. It kept the cut secure.
Hmm.
When you're breastfeeding, you don't feel as much pressure, like the pulsating of the contractions. You don't feel it as much. It allows a lot more control. But you're right, C-section and breastfeeding completely different. The weight loss part of it, I think a lot of people experience the weight loss in the beginning. But what
Mm-hmm.
people forget is that you have to eat a lot to maintain breast milk.
Mm-hmm.
So once your
Yes,
child
you
hits
do.
like that 4, 5, 6 months, if you're not active, you're just eating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And depending on how your child eats, that might not be good. So you see a lot of women, they lose a lot of weight in the beginning, but by the time their child is about 1 and they start weaning off their baby, they've gained back that weight and they're wondering why isn't it going anywhere? And it's because like breastfeeding takes a lot of eating, a lot of nutrition, guys.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Back to the belly binding. I didn't know that with the C-section there was a difference. I had a vaginal birth at home. I didn't go to the
Ooh.
hospital. There was no doctor. I just had the doula. But she
Hmm.
did do the belly binding for me, and I noticed
Mm-hmm.
a big difference when she
Hmm.
did that. She had me lay down and she wrapped my hips and my stomach, and it really felt like everything was
It's the
kind of just like
support. Yeah.
coming back together,
Yeah.
you know. And
Hmm.
that's another thing too. Like you have to give your body a chance to come back together. And that in itself is a mental exhaustion. You can't move around the way that you want to, especially if you have other children.
Yep.
And I think that we feel so guilty when we have kids because we think this is how I have to do it. It has to be perfect. And we put so much
Hmm.
stress and pressure on ourselves. And then we're giving that to the baby, like Bay Area said, we're transferring that energy. So I know for me right now, I was like, I want to breastfeed until he's at least 3. I did not expect him to be this big and to eat this often. So it's like I'm really trying to work it out, and I'm like, well, why don't we just start introducing, fruit or something at 6 months? But then he eats so much that it's like he might not even want the breast anymore. And then I don't want to do formula. Me personally, I can only speak for myself. I don't want to do formula because it's not natural, and I don't feel like I want to give my child that. So it's like I have this back and forth struggle in my mind of, am I going to be able to continue to produce as much as I need to? And is he going to get what he needs at the rate that he's growing? So it's always all these questions that go through my head with this experience.
And I think I'm more of a universal thinker too. I feel like everything happens as it should and when it should.
Yes.
So
Mm-hmm.
when your body, when it's time for your body to stop that process, it will stop it on its own. Um, I
Mm-hmm.
I think far too many times we want to do what we've read or what other women are doing. I think it is truly important for you to be in touch with you. Listen to
Exactly.
your body because your body will tell you everything that you need to know. Mothers possess this skill, it was God given.
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
is something that is innate. And to go against it, you're doing yourself a detriment. So I would say listen
I
to your body.
agree.
If your body keeps producing that milk and you are able to feed your baby, and that is definitely what you want to do, I say keep
Mm-hmm.
going. I don't care what anybody has to say. And maybe it's me, maybe it's the 40 plus talking, but I care less what people think, especially when it comes to my kids. And the other thing that you'll find is that breastfeeding and giving your children breast milk, it truly increases their brain function. My kids are so smart. Now their mother is not dumb. Don't get me wrong. Their mother is not dumb.
We don't doubt
I'm
that,
I'm
hun.
I'm not dumb, but these kids are so advanced, and I really think that it
Yes.
has a lot to do with the fact that they were breastfed children. I just think
Mm-hmm.
that it does a lot with their brain function. Um, and I just like my doctor said, he said as long as you have it to give, he was like he is a proponent of giving it to them. He said, I don't care if they latch, I don't care if you pump, I don't care if you give it to them in a cup. He said if you have it and they can have it, give it to them because he said it,
Right.
Yep.
it just builds so many other things. My kids are rarely sick because I
Mm-hmm.
breastfed my babies, because they're the antibodies that pass through your body, all of all the natural given, like they call it liquid gold for a reason.
Yes.
There's so much in it. And I just think that it has a lot to do with like they don't have allergy issues. And I really think that it has a lot to do with the breast milk itself. So that's why I say if you have the ability to give it to your children, however you give it to them, I think that it's important that you give it to them. And there's a lot of reasons and a lot of things that support it.
I agree. I
Yep.
agree. And I am the 30 plus club. So I was nervous about that too. Is my body really going to be able to do this? And
Hmm.
here I am. I did it. I had a home birth. I didn't use any pain medicines, and I'm on month 4 almost. I stopped at 3 with my daughter, so I'm already past that time frame. So I'm just going to keep going, and we'll see what happens. Sorry, somebody had a question. Lady KC says, what were your baby's weights, and did you worry about weight loss more so ounces for the baby? My son was 9 pounds 7 ounces, so he's been gaining weight like extremely fast. Like I said, he's like 20 pounds now, and he's about to be 4 months in like 2 weeks. So he's a big baby. I was never concerned about his weight. I was actually kind of surprised because I've never seen a newborn that big before, like in person. I was like, wow. And the football hold for me is really uncomfortable. Like I do have larger breasts, but for some reason, that position is just like it feels very unnatural.
Yeah, it felt unnatural to me too, and but I didn't have a choice, and I did the whole pillow thing underneath my arm, my forearm, to help, and it did, but like I said, it looked funny, because
Yeah,
people who are, well, at least back then everyone was used to seeing it the conventional way, and here I am holding him this way, and the like my family and the kids around me, they're all looking at it funny and making fun of me or whatever, but anyway, but yeah, I understand that part of it. Uh, for me, my son who got the, well, his birth weight was like 6 pounds something ounces, and he got the 3 months of breast milk and ended up, average, in the average height. I don't know what the percentile is. I don't know stuff like that anymore. My daughter, she was premature. She was 5 pounds when I brought her home. Only got like maybe a week's worth of breast milk, and then you know went to formula. But she was fine after that. I mean, she grew normally. Um, both of my kids, and this is, to me, this has nothing to do with the breast milk because, one had it, the other didn't. And asthma runs in my family. So they ended up being asthmatic. And I don't know if the breast milk had anything to do with it. I think that there's some things that are, some that are environmental or genetic. Both my husband and my side of the family, they were all asthmatic. I was like the only one in my family that wasn't. So I figured if that was a, contributing factor to my kids, having asthma. Um, and they both had it pretty bad too when they were younger. As they got older, they both grew out of it. But yeah, that was something that I think that just ran in the family. Um, but and the weight loss. Are you talking about, so Lady Casey, are you talking about the weight loss for us or the babies? I'm not sure what that. Hey, Miss Nebraska. Sorry, I
Hi,
have to
Miss
say hi to
Nebraska.
her because I have not seen her on Twitch in a minute and I missed the shit out of her. Um, hey, girl.
Welcome
I
in.
saw Pretty Ricky the other night that she mods for a DJ that's here in town. So I just
Oh,
wanted to
okay.
let her know that I saw him. So,
So
um,
she said the weight loss for the baby.
oh, okay. I didn't experience, well, the only time my daughter lost weight is so she was 5'2" at birth, and then she lost 2 ounces, but I didn't even get a chance to feed her yet back then because she was so tiny. They at the hospital they gave her formula without telling me. So I
I'd
think
have
that
been
was another
pissed.
reason why we had a bumpy start with the breast because
Right.
she was a preemie. They gave her formula at the hospital and they didn't tell me. So there you go.
I think,
She was 2 ounces. She was 5 pounds even when I brought her home. But from there like I said, she was fine.
Hospitals
So
do have
anyway.
contracts with formula companies too. So
Hmm.
there's certain hospitals that are pro breast, and there's certain hospitals that are pro formula. So depending on where you deliver, there
Mhm.
that's how your nurses will direct you, right?
Yeah, and I think they did that because she was a preemie,
Hmm.
and when we and like she couldn't latch, so there was a time in the hospital where we did try to feed, but she couldn't latch, but she did get some milk in her,
mhm.
but I because I was still producing, so she did get some, but I think at that they just went ahead and gave her the formula because she wasn't latching. And then I made the attempt at home, and I was pumping while I was trying to get her to latch, and it just wasn't working. So I just said I'll just pump until I dry out, let her drink that, and then move on to formula after that.
Yeah,
But
Lady Casey, I don't case in law, my son, I should say, lost not even like a full ounce in the hospital, but he did lose a little bit of weight
mhm,
before we left. I think
Mhm.
the threshold is like 1 pound. If they lose more than a pound, then you can't leave. So he didn't even hit that 1 pound. And by the time he went to his first doctor's appointment 3 days later, he had gained it back. So that was the only thing that I experienced. But I also started supplementing from early because when I said with the glucose, I'd rather give him something to eat than struggle with the breast and continue with
right.
glucose supplements,
Mhm,
right? So
mhm.
Right. And I think all babies go through that weight gain, weight loss
in the
pattern in the
beginning, yeah.
first couple weeks anyway, until they begin to stabilize. And it's because they're getting used to the feedings, right?
Mhm,
Which is why
mhm.
the hospital always tells you you got to feed the baby every so many hours. It has to be this ounces. You have to do this. And it's just kind of putting them on a schedule. And I think that once they're on that schedule, you'll start to see those fluctuations in weight stop. My children only went up because, like I said, all of my children were premature. The earliest one that was premature, he was born to 9.5. So,
Wow, tiny.
yeah, he was, Yeah. So he only went up, and I wasn't able to take him home. He had to stay until he was full term, so I wasn't able to take him home until he was very close to what his birth date was supposed to be. And
Right,
when I took him
right.
home, he was like right at 5 pounds. And even then, he dropped a little bit when I brought him home, but then he rebound right back after everything just kind of started to even out. With the breast situations that I was telling you that I was having, like some got milk and some didn't. Um, when I did produce the milk, they did give them that milk. They just mixed it in with the formula. So that way they didn't miss feedings, but they were also still getting the benefits of my breast milk as well. So they did that for me until either my breast milk came in for the first two babies, and then for my daughter, she really didn't get much beyond what I was able to produce when I was in the hospital, and we had to put her on the special formula that I was talking about. So I just think that the good thing is that most of these hospitals listen to mothers. And if you are an advocate for you and your child and you tell them what you want,
Hmm.
and be very emphatic about it, they will follow your directions. And like I said, I would just say do what's best for you. I know all of us want it to be utopia, but sometimes it's just not. And you have to be okay with that. And I think the stress of feeling like you have to breastfeed or you have to bottle feed or however way you do it, I think that does more damage than, you just really just kind of going with the flow and doing what comes natural for you and your child.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, right.
breastfeeding is mentally draining. Like
Hmm.
you're constantly on demand. Your body is no longer yours. Everything that you want to do, you have to think about, is it time to feed? When is the baby going to get hungry? If you're pumping, then you have a little bit more liberty, yes, because you can go from your
Mhm,
reserve, right? But
mhm.
if you're not pumping, you constantly have to be there. And I
On
find that's
demand.
one of the struggles too, is that I've seen women who constantly have their child attached to their breast. And honestly, to me, that would be way too much. I don't
Oh,
want to be
totally.
feeding all
Hmm.
day. And that's one of the benefits of bottle feeding, is that your child gets 8 ounces like every 3 hours and you don't have to worry. Where
Hmm.
breastfeeding, 1 minute your child's eating like a full meal one time, and another time they're cluster feeding, right? And it's
Mm,
like snacks, right? So they're
Yeah,
constantly
right.
going.
And you're still producing, and you're like, you're getting engorged, and and you go in the shower, and it's like a shower coming out of your nipples,
There's
right?
so much going on, yeah. So I think like too, like a lot of it is on your mental. Like we all think we're gonna go into it and it's gonna be roses. And there's a lot of women that love breastfeeding. But
Hmm.
even the women that love breastfeeding, they break down too. And
No.
you need to check
Oh,
on
of
them, you
course.
need to make sure
It's
they're
an
okay.
emotional roller coaster. It
Yeah,
really is.
it's almost as hard as labor. It might even be harder, like mentally, like all the things that you
Hmm.
have to go through. Labor, it's like once it starts happening, you're like, okay, just tell me how this is kind of gonna go. But I find with breastfeeding, we all have this like stigma in our head that it's just gonna go as planned, and there's
Right.
a million things that could go wrong.
absolutely.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, that, and as you said, like it's about feeding your baby.
Mhm.
Don't get caught up in whether or not you can or you can't, or did it go the way that it is, because that alone can bring you down a very, very slippery slope.
Yeah.
Oh,
And they say
And
postpartum is 6 to 8 weeks. I feel
Yeah.
like once you have a baby, you can experience postpartum at any time, especially when you're breastfeeding, because, like you said, you're constantly on demand. I call it the buffet. The buffet is always open. The
always.
vending machine. I go
Hmm.
to the grocery store and I'm like, I just need to go to the grocery store for a minute, and I come back and he's yelling his head off.
I
He
know.
doesn't like bottles.
Hmm.
Mm.
He plays with the bottles. He's like, "What is this?" So some of these things I didn't experience with my daughter. Like I said, I breastfed her for 3 months. I noticed that's usually the time frame people say they went for about 3 months. It's like after 3 months, it's just if it's not going well, it's like I need something else. And I put
Hmm.
her on formula, and she did lose a little weight in the beginning, and then once she got on the formula, that's when she started to gain the weight back.
Hmm.
So I
because
did notice
yeah, the
that with
formula
her.
has all the calories and stuff that'll basically fatten them up. And
Yeah, yeah.
and a lot of a lot of moms work. So the 3 months is basically as long as your maternity leave. And
Mhm.
then,
Right, that too.
you start, you want to wean them out beforehand, or you bring the pump to work, you
That's what
know.
I was just about to say is
And
that
and when I was, in the 90s, we didn't have lactation rooms back then.
I was in the bathroom.
We were
ooh,
in a stall, right?
Mhm.
Now there's like lactation rooms with little refrigerators in there. I
Right.
mean, you get the
Have none of that.
recliner so you can be in the right state of mind to pump. They didn't have that when I had my kids.
Mm-mm. And
in Canada we
I
have a
wonder, Lady
year.
KC said something about how much formula costs nowadays. I don't know how much it is right now. I know with my last daughter, with the specialty formula that I had to give her, I think it was like $50 a can. I have no idea how much it is now.
Oh my
I'm
God,
not
it's
sure
it's
either.
$50 a
terribly
can.
expensive. Yeah.
But when she
I
was
know I get
a baby,
coupons in the mail every other
almost
week
That's
for
died.
why
formula.
that's another reason why you start them on solids early.
And she, trust me, she was a cereal baby soon.
Yes,
Hmm.
cereal with the breast milk.
Hmm.
You use you put cereal in the breast milk bottle or whatever.
Hmm.
If you're feed pumping, just put cereal in their little breast milk bottle, and they'll sleep through the
And
night.
I would buy the natural oatmeal too, and I would like blend it myself. Like
Yeah.
I went through like when I became a little bit more involved in understanding what was happening to our environment and the foods and just everything that was kind of going on later on, I started making my own baby food. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, you will kind of go back and forth with a lot of this, and a lot of the stuff you can buy naturally, and you can, puree it, blend it, and you can have it in chunks when they get older. They've got like the little
Mm-hmm.
baby magic bullet stuff now. We didn't have any of that stuff when I had my first baby way back when, but with my daughter, I learned a lot about those things, and so I started making baby food for the last baby. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely
And
gonna
that's
do
so much
that.
better too. Mm-hmm.
Because we are plant based. I have learned about a lot of ways to get him some more food. Probably
Mhm,
at 6 months, but he's four
mhm,
months now, and he's the size of a 6 month old.
mhm.
And I'm nervous about trying to offer him any type of like rice cereal, anything like that. I have a elder woman who told me, she's like, we fed our grandbaby at 3 months. Our grandbaby
Yes.
was eating,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and they were comfortable with that, and it worked out fine for them. I'm just a
Mhm.
little nervous about doing it because yes, he's bigger, but he's still a baby. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's like,
Yeah.
is
Well,
that
you
the
do
best
it when you're
idea?
ready, but pretty soon he's going to be grabbing stuff from you, so he'll be
He
curious.
already is.
So if you're eating, I mean, something, and he's going to be curious about it, he's going to grab it from you and put it in his mouth. So
Mhm.
I mean, with
Yeah.
my
be
son,
prepared for
And
that
I was
stuff.
very by
and
the
he'll tell
book.
you when he needs
I
more.
was um I was
He'll tell
very
you
by
when
the
he needs
book.
more.
I
Mhm.
was like I can tell you exactly when he started solids, 6 months. I can tell you what he started on. They tell you to introduce the same thing for the first 3 days, like for 3 days in a row, and
Mhm.
then introduce something new. Don't do the sweet stuff first. Go to the like your sours and your bitters and all those other stuff that you don't like. So you open up those palettes first. I did all of that with my son, but here we are, like 2 years later, and I can't tell you like what's the first thing my daughter tried. I
Mhm.
can't tell you what she like really doesn't eat. She eats everything.
Hmm.
I find like that little petting and pampering, like I'm past that. There's
Mhm.
just certain things. I mean, her dad is allergic to kiwi and banana.
Mhm.
So I was a little bit weary with those things, but I've already introduced her to them, and she's fine. But other
Mhm.
than that, anything she grabs at, she can eat. Where my son, it was like, oh no, you can't give him that. He's only 6 months. He'll have
Mhm.
allergies. He'll have this. He'll have that. And even cereal now, they've told us that cereal is no longer good for the babies.
Mhm.
That it's filled with nothing. I mean, if you're grinding up your own oats, that's different. But
Mhm.
like those rice cereals that you're getting in the box,
Mhm.
they're actually more of a suffocation hazard. They're saying now than anything else, right? So
Mhm.
That's
everything changes every
interesting.
day.
I
Everything
heard that
everything
too. Yeah.
changes. Like with my
Yeah.
daughter, he was like, no water. And I was like, no water. Who doesn't give
Right.
their kid water? What do you
Right?
mean?
That is
No
a
water?
big one with my
And I was like,
mom. She tried to
what?
drown my baby.
So
I
yeah,
was like,
it's crazy. It changes all the time. And I feel like your baby, like I noticed, I just paid attention to them. Like if they were like going a little longer in between feedings, I knew that they were satisfied. But
Yep.
like if they were hungry every hour on the hour, okay, we got to do something else. Because you're
Exactly.
they say
not
you could
moving.
Exactly.
drown though from
So
the
Yeah,
inside out.
isn't that crazy? They was like they told he said no water. He was like your breast milk has all the water that they need.
Yeah,
And
they say
you're
you
giving
could
them
drown.
formula that gives them all the water that they need.
Yeah.
It was strange for me. It was a lot of things that are new and they change all the time. And I
Mhm.
listen to some of the mothers nowadays, and I'm just like, wow. So yeah.
Yeah, like the fore milk and the hind milk. When I had my daughter, I had no one told me about that. I didn't know
Hmm.
about breast compressions. I was extremely engorged. I was like a double G when I had her. And I was at the time I was living in a hotel, so I didn't have the stove and stuff to cook the right
Hmm.
kind of meals. So that whole
Oh,
experience was
wow.
so
Okay.
different than this experience.
Hmm.
So
Mhm.
now it's like I'm really paying attention to him and what he needs, but I'm seeing how he's
Different.
aggressive he is when he's eating. He's like,
Mhm.
I need more, you know? So it's like getting to that point where it's like, okay, we're going to have to introduce something to kind
Hmm.
of balance that out a little bit.
Hmm.
I want to go to the comments real quick. Sorry, ladies and
Oh,
gentlemen in the chat. I did see Queen Nikki had a question. She said, do I see a difference with development in your two children since one is fully breastfed? Absolutely. But the thing is, my daughter was breastfed for 3 months, and I'm just about to be at 4 months with my son. So it's kind of hard to tell, like, if it's the breast milk or not, but I can say he's rolling on his side, he's grabbing stuff, he holds his
Hmm.
head up, he's talking, like he's doing a lot of stuff that she wasn't doing. She would make baby noises, but he's really like using his voice. He's loud. He's he reaches up, like if he wants to get picked up, he reaches out to get picked up.
Hmm.
Those were the things that she wasn't doing. Is it because of the breast milk? I honestly don't know, but I do know that my diet is way better than it is, way better now than it was with her 5 years ago. And I
Hmm.
do think that contributes, but I don't necessarily know if that's the only reason why. So
Hmm.
um, that's my answer to that one. Did anyone else have any questions? Sorry, I'm just catching up with the chat.
Me too.
Um, Lady Casey said maternity leave is so different in many states and countries, so work priorities can shift your breastfeeding plans. Yeah, it's like
Mhm.
the way everything is set up now, where you get a certain amount of time off and then you have to go back to work. It's really not set up for people to breastfeed. It's set up for you to pump in the store and to leave it. So I believe that's another reason why a lot of women decide to not breastfeed, because it's like, well, they're drinking the bottle anyway, so why not just give them the formula?
come to
And
Yeah.
Canada.
I mean,
We got
unless your
formula for a
workplace
year and a
has a
half.
daycare where you can go in every
right.
couple of hours and actually breastfeed your baby, you're pumping and you're saving it for when you get home, or you're sticking in the freezer, whatever you're doing. Um, but yeah, and there's, I mean, I could say 80% of mothers are working mothers. So, the workplace um, has to accommodate for things like that, with the
Mhm.
lactation rooms and stuff like that. And, you know, if
Hmm.
they have on-site daycare, make it easy for the mother to feed her baby.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Canada has 1 year to 18 months for maternity leave. So
Oh
we
wow.
do have the opportunity here to breastfeed, or I should say it's encouraged,
Hmm.
more so because you do have the time. And as you're saying, with like wellness rooms and stuff, I know at my workplace, we do have a wellness room, no reclining chair or anything like that, but there's like a nice sofa in there and you can lock the door.
Hmm.
And you could do what you have to do. It's not just for women who are
What are you
breastfeeding,
doing?
though. It's for like mothers who need to pray,
I'll be right
anything like that. That you need kind of that private space.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Let me see what comments. Mr. Nebraska said, these doctors don't know anything. One of my biggest one of my biggest issues with this is like something that's kind of controversial, but this is how I choose to live my life. This is my perspective, and that's why I brought us together, because I know we all have different views. I don't believe in going to the doctor unless it's like urgently necessary. Like I rely on talking to the doula, other mothers, like Google, YouTube, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Going to the doctor, I know with my daughter, they didn't even attempt the breastfeeding at the beginning. They just came straight with the formula. I'm like, I want to breastfeed. I felt like they were trying to force me to do that. They didn't really give me an option. And I like to go about the natural way of things, doing things. And if it doesn't work, if for whatever reason I can't breastfeed, I'll be okay with that, because I know that I'm putting in the effort to make sure that he's breastfed and he's getting what he needs. And that's just how I approach things. But hearing other people's experiences, I know that I have those things on the back burner just in case. I'm not just gonna not do anything else just because maybe I'm not producing or what have you. I'm always gonna make sure he has what he needs. And I remind myself that when he's really hungry and stuff, I'm like, when the time is right and he needs to get fed, he'll get fed. I'm producing, like Bay said, I'm producing and he's getting what he needs. So I don't have to freak out about it, but I'm an overthinker. So I do think about it like, oh, is he getting what he needs? So that's just my perspective
I
as
mean,
far as
I
like,
agree. I agree with you to a certain extent as well, just because medicine is big business now. So you have to take a lot of things with a grain of salt. I
mhm,
am a believer in reading. So I feel like any information that you need is at your fingertips. You can have, there's so many other resources that are out
mhm,
there. Parenting is it's very experiential. I'll just tell you that. A lot of what you learn as a parent is not going to be in books. It's not going to be what the doctor told you. Because a lot of it is just that you have to go through those experiences, and you have to be able to adjust and turn on a dime when necessary, because no two children are alike, and doctors approach medicine from history, what they've seen in other children, and each child is different. So I say there's nothing, I think that you have to have both. I think that there's a reason why we have doulas and why we have homeopaths and why we have
Mm-hmm.
naturopaths. They're there for a reason. And there's nothing wrong with you taking a little bit from everyone,
right,
and figuring out what's going to work for you, because it's not all, by the book. It's just not. I don't think that doctors are willing to say that necessarily, because a lot of them do have to have a job.
right,
They have to do what um, the drug companies want. They have to do what
Yes.
the health insurance companies want, because
mhm,
certain things are going to be paid for and certain things are not going to be paid for. We live in America and everything is very culturally driven as well. I will say a lot of Black women are deterred from breastfeeding because
yes,
they just don't care about Black mothers necessarily, as much as other mothers. And I just think that they feel one way or another that this is what all Black mothers do. So we're going to give all Black mothers the same thing. And I just think that everyone puts everyone in a box. And I just think that that is the danger in just anything outside of parenting, just everything. So I am a proponent of reading for yourself. I
mhm,
believe in talking to other mothers. Um, our ancestors learned by storytelling. They did not
Mm-hmm.
learn from books. So I mean, it's just a lot of things that I don't discount. I made it through. I was kind of an old school, kind of raised background situation, and I turned out fine. So I believe that there is a lot of things that are to be learned by word of mouth, and by teaching and
yeah.
being in groups of women, and things like that. So I agree with you. I think that everything has its place.
Mm-hmm. And if I could just piggyback on Miss Nebraska's comment about doctors, I was fortunate. I had, I did the conventional HMO thing, and the pediatricians that I did have actually did listen to me. They knew that I knew my kids better than anybody else. So, and they all they did was just either confirm or ask me, okay, what do you think your child needs or whatever. Usually, I knew what type of antibiotic they needed with whatever was going on. I knew exactly what kind of antibiotic they needed to prescribed based on experiences and how they reacted with other antibiotics. So if they had, some sort of ear infection or whatever, I knew exactly what type of antibiotic. And they listened to me because they said, "Okay, well, you're the mom. You know your children better than anybody else. You think if you want that antibiotic, we'll go ahead and prescribe it." So I was lucky. I mean, I'm not sure how other people, I'm not sure how other people their experiences were. If they had, if they had the luck that I did, because it was like a whole like and they've seen the pediatricians, all of them in that one particular office. They've seen for one reason or another because of asthma and all that other stuff, and the ear infections and just the different things that kids have. But I was lucky that they listened to me and that they knew that I knew what I was talking about. So yeah, I mean, I guess to her point, um, I think a lot of them, probably do, either practice or prescribe based on, medical school or whatever. But there are some out there that will actually listen to the parents. So I guess uh, to defend at least the pediatricians I was able to have in my kids' lives, we were, they were great. I had great experiences with them.
I don't know. I don't find the pediatricians are the same as like my pediatrician. I remember when my mom would take me to the pediatrician knew my name, knew my whole history, knew what grade I was in. She had
Mm-hmm.
full conversations about my whole entire life. Like she knew that I played basketball. She was fully involved in my life. It was like she was an auntie. Where I find now every time I go to the pediatrician, I have to be reminding him that my son has asthma. I have to be reminding him that he's allergic to penicillin. I have to be reminding him. I found
Mm-hmm.
that even in the beginning, they kept telling me, oh, he has bronchitis. He has bronchitis. And I kept telling them, like, in our family, almost everyone has their tonsils and their adenoids cut out. We're all asthmatic children. We've all had something, like, we're just born wet for some reason. And I was telling him, like, I feel like it's the same thing for him. And I remember one day, like, I went into the office and I was asking for a referral, and they kept telling me, like, oh, the referral's taking long. Just call back in 2 weeks if you don't hear anything. It's like the third time I've called back in 2 weeks. And the lady, while I was talking to her at the reception desk, she answered a phone call in the middle of me talking to her.
Oh
I just hung
goodness.
up the phone. I was like, excuse me? Like, no. And she was like, what are you doing? I was like, what are you doing? Like, you do not have any concern for my son right now. And if I have to tear up this whole place to get the referral that I need, then I'll do what I have to do. I got an
Mm-hmm.
ENT referral before I walked out there in like 15 minutes. And he did need to have his adenoids cut out and his tonsils. He has like fluid stuck between his ears and his throat, essentially. So there was a lot more problems, and he kept giving me not penicillin, but what they prescribe for children who are allergic to it. I'm sorry, I can't remember right now. So he kept giving me that for bronchitis. And I find, like, if you're listening to me and you're hearing me talk about my history and my family, and I'm telling you that this is what happens to most of us, his mother,
Mm-hmm.
why do I have to shut down the whole doctor's office before somebody listens to me? And now I'm the mad black woman. No, I'm going to advocate for my child every single time. And I find that now more than ever, even in the hospitals, like when you go in there, they give you this nice birth plan, and there's so much extra stuff on there that you do not need. The biggest things are things like, do you want your child to be formula fed or breastfed? Those are things that you need to make sure that you check off about your pain medication. All
Mhm.
these things about whether you want candles, you want music, you want, I don't know, God knows what in the room. All those things are not important, but making sure that you advocate for yourself and your child from the day they're born is wild. I find in the day that we're in now. I don't think
Yeah,
my mom
definitely.
got to
Yeah,
go
it
through
It's
that
is.
with her
it's
mom.
It
definitely
is.
different. Everything is driven by money. Everything. I mean,
Yes.
if
Mhm.
you,
The
I have friends that
It's
corporation.
are in, I
so
have friends that are in medical
it's not
billing.
personal
Yes.
or intimate
Mhm.
anymore, which is sad because like I said about our the pediatricians that my kids have, they have the pictures from birth to 8th grade or birth to high school when they stop seeing those pediatricians. So, they
Yeah, and
watch them
I
grow
had
up.
that
They
in the
know
Must have
beginning.
been,
exactly,
yes.
I
you
did. I
know,
had that in the beginning with my first children. It's
yeah,
different
they,
now, and I just
they know
said,
exactly what, when I come in and one's having an asthma attack, they already know what, who.
but insurance companies are now saying we're only going to pay for a visit and it should only take 10 minutes. If your visit lasts longer than 10 minutes, then we're not paying for beyond the 10 minutes. So if you try to bill us for a 30-minute visit and it should only take 10 minutes, we're only going to pay you for the 10-minute visit. The rest of it now either falls on you to write off as a doctor or for you to pass along to your patient. And that's just really what happens now.
That's
So I just
crazy.
think that everything is just it's unfortunate. It's very different, but you like when you're picking your benefits and all of that good stuff, you read the fine print. It tells you exactly what they cover and what they don't cover, and your doctors respond accordingly because it affects their pocket as well. So
Yeah.
that's why I said I agree with you about there needs to be a mix. There needs
Yes.
to be a mix.
And
Even
also,
C-sections are a big money maker here. I don't know about in the States, but a regular labor, I think, is maybe like 6,000, maybe 10,000. If you have a vaginal labor, for a C-section, it's like 36. So
Oh,
as
mine was
Oh
about a
gosh,
quarter of
I
a
don't
million
even
dollars.
know.
yeah,
Mine was
and
a
that's
quarter
the
of a
thing.
million.
They try to push the C-sections on you. They try to do that with my daughter. It was completely unnecessary because they get paid more money for that. That right there,
100%.
it says a lot. And I think it's important too that we're educated as we go through our pregnancy, because if I was educated about those things, I could have handled it differently. I didn't know,
Mhm.
so I worked with what I had. But
Yeah.
biology says that when the same health issues are persisting in your family, it's probably something that's being eaten that's causing those health related issues. That's something that I learned. I used to have asthma. I don't anymore. My daughter, she had asthma, completely switch her diet. She doesn't have asthma anymore. So that's just an example, but it's always take these medicines and things like that. And I like to understand. I don't want to just take medicine. I want to know what is it, what is it, where is it coming from, and what can I do to stop it? And if I can't and it gets really bad, then I will go to the doctor, what have you. And even with having a midwife, I had a midwife, we had an agreement in the beginning, everything was going to be natural. And then I was like 28 weeks, she's like, I can no longer see you if you don't do blood work and you don't take these tests. So at 28 weeks I got rid of my midwife because the birth plan was, we're doing this naturally, we're not doing medicine, we're not taking blood, we're not doing any of that. We're going to check the heart rate, we're going to check my urine. And she wanted to do other things because the state required her to do that. And I was like, okay, I respect that you want to do that. I don't want you to lose your license. So I had to separate. And I didn't find my doula until I was, I want to say 32 or 30 weeks pregnant, 33 weeks pregnant. So that time in between, I just did my research and took everything that I knew. And thankfully for me, I can only speak for myself, everything was fine. I was fine. I didn't have to go to the hospital. He was healthy when he was born, but everybody doesn't have the experience. So I understand that there are outlets out there for others. I'm just an advocate for the natural route. Try what you can naturally, and then after that, if you need something else, then do that. Because I personally don't want to put my money in the pocket of someone who really doesn't care about the well being of me and my family. But that's just my opinion on that.
No, I agree with you, and I think that that's why I say mothers need to read. You need to know
Yeah,
what your options are before you walk in the doors because you have to have a mindset of knowing what your options are, what you would like to do, and have a plan B so that you know they can already know that you're not dumb by any stretch of the imagination. You know what's supposed to happen, what is supposed to occur, and anything outside of the box, they need to get your okay on. And I just think that it's very important that you learn about you and you learn about your people, your culture, what is natural to your people, what runs in your family. There's a reason why they say that most African Americans have high blood pressure. There's a reason for all of that. Doing your research and understanding why that is a cycle, and how to break it. Like you were saying, the whole asthmatic situation, same thing. A lot of us, our bodies are not made to consume dairy. And most of our breathing issues, most of our respiratory issues come because we consume dairy much longer than we are supposed to. If you look at the animals in the wild, the other mammals of the world, they don't drink milk their whole life. There's a reason for it. So,
I think support is huge too, to that
mm,
point.
Oh yeah,
Um,
I was just going to say
because
Absolutely.
that. Hmm.
because when
Yeah.
you're going through the motions of labor, things don't always go as planned, as we're saying, and sometimes you're thrown like left and you didn't do that research, and maybe you just need like your husband, your mom, your best friend there to remind you that, hey, remember you wanted to go natural, remember you
mhm,
didn't want
Right.
medicine. Or even if you end up having to take some type of medicine and go under,
write it
at
down.
least somebody is there to say,
Mhm.
hey, don't give my baby formula, wait for me so I give them breast milk, those kinds of things, because they'll make decisions on your behalf and say they had to when they really didn't have to, right?
Right.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
having that support system and having somebody that knows you and knows your wants, I think is important too.
I agree. I agree. Um, my last question, because I see we're almost at an hour and a half. Um, as far as eating goes, I know that it was quite some time ago, Michelle, in Bay Area for you with your experience. But if you can remember at all, uh, do you remember as far as eating during breastfeeding? For me, I get really thirsty.
Yes.
Were you eating constantly? Like, were you breastfeeding eating?
I
Do you
was I
notice
was
you were eating like 6 meals instead of 2 meals?
Yes. I was constantly snacking. I
Hmm.
did eat 6 meals a day, just about, and I was always thirsty as well. So I drank a lot of water, um, a lot of teas and things like that because I got tired of water and then I couldn't have the caffeine. I'm a coffee head. So like the first year of my baby's lives, it's a little difficult in my household because I have serious caffeine withdrawal. And it caused me to be thirsty because of it as well. So like I just needed to like I drank a lot of water. And then I started eating things that had um like a lot of water and things like that in it, juices, natural stuff in it. So like I ate a lot of apples. I ate a lot of um fruits and things like that and veggies, and I really ate a lot of that. Not so much meat because I did realize like when I was breastfeeding, like eating meat made me sick in a sense.
Mm.
Not really like sick to my stomach, but it just made me feel super bloated, and then carrying the weight of milk when it's coming in on
Hmm.
top of like that bloaty feeling, like it was super uncomfortable. So I did stay away from a lot of that, but I did eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, and I drank a lot of water.
I found I was starving when I was breastfeeding, especially mid feed. I'd get like a headache. It's like, when you don't eat at all and your stomach's just completely empty. That's why I
Yeah.
say starving, because literally felt like
You
I
feel it
hadn't
leaving your
eaten.
body.
Yeah, and I hadn't eaten all day. I get lightheaded. I'd have to have like a snack in one hand, baby in the other hand. I felt like
Hmm. Yeah.
I was constantly going. So for me, the
I would
eating
eat
was
as I
huge.
breastfed too. Yep.
Yeah. And I'm not a big person that like loves water. I know I drink it because I have to.
Mhm.
but it's not my go-to. So for me with breastfeeding, that was huge for me. Like I had to literally download an app that reminded me to drink water at a certain time every single day, so that I would get enough. I'll drink enough juice and stuff like that, but water, no. So the hunger was more of an issue for me than the thirst, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, from what I remember, it was the same. I had snacked in between. I was young, so I wasn't really mindful of like diet and stuff like that. We're Filipino family, so I ate a lot of rice and Filipino food. My grandmother, would push all this stews and stuff like because we have a lot of our dishes are like our stews. So I would eat a lot of that with with rice.
Oh,
So
okay.
I
Well, that
yeah,
broth is really good. Hmm.
yeah, like
I'm
the
hungry.
sweet frothy
Right.
stuff. Yeah, exactly. And I had a sweet tooth. I still have a sweet tooth, so I ate a lot of sweet stuff um because it was I was still craving stuff
Mm.
during while I was breastfeeding. And I didn't really give too much concern about my weight, because I got big. I'm only 5'1". I got to 207 pounds with my son.
Hmm.
I'm
And
five
I
four.
was
I was
just,
210. I
yeah,
understand.
I just did, my husband didn't care, so I didn't either.
Well, and then my doctor actually told me that if you are a breastfeeding mother, your
Mhm.
calorie intake is higher, and it
Right.
should
Way
be.
higher.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
So it's like you're eating
and
for
he
two
would tell my
again,
husband, he
you
was
know?
like, "Hey,
Hmm.
she's breastfeeding. She can eat whatever she wants to eat."
Yeah,
So, and that's
exactly.
really what it is. So I think that and then a lot of it too, you have to eat what you can tolerate because you still have that nausea. Your stomach is getting back to, being what it used to be. So there might be some things that your body is like, no, I don't want that, or I can't
Hmm.
take that, and it only will allow you to tolerate certain things. I would just say listen to it. But yeah, I definitely ate all the time, all the
Oh,
And
Miss
pepper for
Nebraska.
me. I miss pepper. The pepper
time,
would upset
Oh
the
yes, I
baby.
want some hot sauce.
all
Yeah.
the time,
Yeah, right?
spicy all the
Hmm.
time.
I don't know if you tried it already, Love K, and you were like, yeah, never doing this
No.
again, but I tried it. I was like, let
Yeah.
me just see. I can take a little bit. No.
Yeah, and I go.
Ruined my
I
life.
take him to a
It's good going
naturopathic.
in. It's just not so good going out.
Yeah, I take him to a naturopathic doctor, so everything is all like the natural way of doing things. And she had me cut out. I say this word wrong. Crucifixes or whatever, broccoli,
Crustaceans?
cauliflower,
Oh yeah.
beans,
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
like
So
Oh,
anything
everything that I
gassy.
eat is
cruciferous. Is
like
it
pretty much cut out of my diet. And I'm like, what
Because
am
it
I?
makes
What
the
the hell am
baby
I supposed to
gassy. Yep.
eat?
Mhm.
Yep.
So I'm eating a lot of like rice and then quinoa, but I can't eat too much quinoa because that makes me gassy and then it makes him gassy. So we just kind of been playing a game over here of what doesn't make him gassy. Um,
Try spinach.
yeah, I can eat
Try spinach.
spinach, but it's like so much of the stuff that I would eat. It's like my rice is looking real empty now.
I
I
know. I
eat
know.
mushrooms because I don't really do meat except fish.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a game, and it
It
takes a
is.
lot of
You
patience.
should you should go you should go off the grain against the grain one day and just have a slice of pizza. I'm sure that'll be great for him.
I would really
Have
love
some
some
French
broccoli.
fries.
Oh yeah,
Go.
I
I get
bet
some.
you
I
he'll
eat
love
French
it.
fries.
I was gonna say, go ahead, Miss Nebraska girl. Have at it.
Yes.
I had my last baby when I was 42, and I was literally sitting in the waiting room, and I think the lady saw the look of shock on my face, and she's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I just think I'm still in shock because this is the daughter that just showed up because every other baby had to go through a process of coming into the world. She just
Hmm.
showed up, and she was just like, "Well, what's the matter?" And I was just like, "I'm just shocked." And she's like, "Well, can I ask you how old you are?" And I was like, "Yes, I'm 42." And so she was like, "Oh, it's gonna be okay." She said, "You could be 59." And I said, "Are you 59?" And she was like, and I was like,
Oh wow.
"Wow."
Wow,
So
that's
I will say
amazing.
kudos to
That's
you. Go
amazing.
forward. I'll tell you this, they definitely keep you young.
I couldn't
Yes.
imagine
They keep
having
you young
a
or they
baby
get you
right
old quick.
now.
Right now, I'm
I
feeling
could
my
not
back.
imagine that.
I told her that
69.
I would probably be in the corner rocking back and forth at 59 with the baby.
Wow. Yeah, because you're like you could be a grandmother at that age, you
Hmm.
know? You could be a grandmother at 50.
Yeah,
And
I
then
didn't think I wanted to have more kids, but I was like, the way relationships are going and these men, I don't see myself having any more kids. And then I met my husband, and then, we ended up having a baby. So it was something that I was like, I don't really know if I'm going to have, any more kids. And then the whole age thing. But I was just telling myself, as long as I take care of
that's
my
it.
body was built for this. It knows what to
Hmm.
do.
Hmm.
So, I see articles of women there was like a Asian woman, she was like 92 or something. Did you guys see that?
Oh,
She
Hmm.
had a baby.
Hmm.
She's,
that's
yeah,
interesting.
your body is made for it. And
Your
I
body can
mean,
do
I wouldn't
whatever.
necessarily be like, oh, I want to have a baby at 92,
I'm
but if
saying
it
you can.
happens, it's supposed to happen.
Yeah. And
So,
then you have to remember these kids don't leave home nowadays, so they're with you forever. So there's that. But I think that you should do whatever your heart desires. Having a baby at 50 is not the end of the world. I just think
right.
that we live longer, we take care of ourselves better. You're more mature, you're wiser. There's so much more that you can teach your children at that age. I just think you should do you. But I will tell you this, the hospitals will treat you like a geriatric. They will actually call you a geriatric mother.
Mm,
Um, I experienced that with both my second and my last child because I was 38 with the second child. Yeah, and they called me, I was a geriatric mom
That's
But
because
you can
probably,
deny
so
those
I
kids
work in
too. Don't
healthcare,
let
and that's
them
probably like
put
a
themselves in the stage.
classification
it
for
is.
like the high risk or whatever for the risk
Mm-hmm.
factors. That's
Yep.
probably why they probably didn't mean to say it in front of you, but they had to
Probably not.
classify you that way because
Yep.
of the risk factors involved.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
I know it's funny because I work in healthcare, and there's always this thing about how to be in front of patients.
Mm-hmm.
There's a way to talk, that healthcare workers talk to each other, and then there's a way that they need to talk to in front of patients,
Mm-hmm.
and I
right.
think they forget how to they
Yeah.
forget that, hey, you're in front of patients when you're talking to your
Mm-hmm.
coworkers, and they
Right.
should, you got to be sensitive to their feelings.
That's
So
true.
yeah, I think they forget about that.
I know, and it's okay because I didn't care. I just sort of, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
old. I'm an old lady, but we're gonna have this baby, and you're gonna do what I want you to do.
yeah,
Period.
yeah.
We don't get old, we get new. Every day
We
is a new
get
day.
better.
So we don't have to use
Hmm.
the
Absolutely.
word old, okay?
That's it. That's it. And Lady Casey, I'm from Chicago. I saw your question about asking where we were all from.
Yeah, I'm from Pennsylvania, but I'm on the West Coast in the desert.
San Francisco, California.
Toronto,
Um,
Canada.
Canada. Okay. So, did you guys have anything else you wanted to add? I want to this is another example here. I got to wrap it up cuz baby wants to eat. I actually pumped. That's another thing. I pumped for like I don't know, 40-45 minutes, and I got 2 ounces. So, that's another
Oh,
thing with,
okay, yes, yes,
breastfeeding.
yes.
It's like you could pump. Sometimes
You gotta
you
feed the
might not get as
monster.
much as you need, but you
Nope.
gonna get
Mm-hmm.
something. So,
Feed the
um,
monster. Feed the monster.
Yep.
yes, yes. But I appreciate you ladies for coming on and having this conversation. I think it's really important for us to share all of our perspectives. You
Yes.
never know who can be helped with these things. And I appreciate everybody in the chat that tuned in. Do you
Yes.
guys have anything you want
Yes.
to
Oh my
say?
gosh, you guys, thanks for coming.
I'm just gonna
Yes.
say, you will always catch me in these Twitch streets.
Oh yes.
I will
Hmm.
Oh,
tell
I
you
see
that
you everywhere,
I will
Michelle
tell
Renee.
you
It's so
that these
funny because the
DJs
first
saved
time
my life, so I'm
the first
here.
time I saw you, Michelle Renee, yeah, I always like jump whenever I see your name or somebody, the DJ says your name, because I'm Michelle Renee
Okay.
too. So, and I
Okay.
think I whispered you that the first time I
Yes, you
saw you.
did.
I'm
I
like, oh my God,
remember.
we have
Yes.
the same name. So whenever I see your name, or the DJ shouts you out, I like jump.
Yes. I have to say this was this gave me life during the the pandemic, and
Mm-hmm.
it has now truly become a way of life for me. I rarely listen to the radio anymore. I rarely watch TV except for my good shows, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm attached to the computer. I look to come and have these conversations with people. I've loved everyone that I've come in contact with. I used to travel for work. If that ever starts up again, um, I may call you guys when I come to Pennsylvania because I'm always over there.
Oh yeah.
Because I work for PNC, so I'm in Pittsburgh, I'm in Philly, I'm in a lot of places a lot of times. So when I listen to where everybody's from, never be surprised if I'm like, come on, meet me up for a cocktail. So wonderful to
Yes,
meet
you'd be
all of you in
surprised.
person
There are a
for
lot of
sure.
Twitch meetups now. Now that everything has reopened, everybody is meeting up. I've met a lot of people on Twitch already. So yeah, it's a great thing meeting people that you have been talking to for almost a year. You
Right.
know,
Hmm.
and finally meeting them in person. It's like you're meeting a long lost relative. It's
Yeah.
awesome. You
Yeah,
get
Twitch
you
has been
feel that,
awesome.
yeah, you feel that bond right away. Like you just, you have no problem just running up to them and giving them hugs because you feel like, because you've been talking to them almost
You've known
every
them
day
forever.
for the
Yeah.
last year and a half. It's like it feels natural, to
It's
just
like an
run up to
online
them and give.
family, that an
It
online
is.
community family that you build
Exactly.
over here, and it's been one of the greatest things actually since the pandemic, because you can connect with people, you can make money, and you can have a good time. So
Hmm.
it's all
Hmm.
good. I love it, and I would love to put together more of these streams about just things that need to be talked about. It doesn't even have to be about motherhood, but if anyone has any like topic ideas or something they want us to talk about, I mean, I'm down. I like to talk, and I would definitely schedule it. And again, I appreciate you ladies. I put
This was
their names in
awesome.
the
Thank you,
chat, so
love.
make sure you follow everybody. It's a follow party. Let's follow everybody. And yeah. Do you have
And
something,
you guys
Sister Ma?
remember,
Sorry.
your breastfeeding journey is personal to yourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
And you don't owe anybody an explanation as to why you breastfeed or why you don't breastfeed. Um,
Exactly.
don't let mommy guilt eat you away, or society or anybody tell you that you have to go any which way. Um, you should know for yourself, mentally and physically, if it's something that's for you and for your child. So do what's good for you. Fed is best, guys.
Absolutely.
Yep,
Yes.
and
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 just
not just
know,
breastfeeding, child rearing in general. You know your child better than anybody, and you're gonna do what's right for your child, you know, because that's your child. You're ultimately responsible for the well-being of this child.
mm-hmm.
So, if you're getting advice that doesn't feel right, then don't let it
Sure.
stress you out.
So true.
You're gonna do what's best for your baby, you know ultimately. So
And bigger than anything, keep being
I
you
just
guys.
want to say,
Thank you for this
sorry to
platform.
interrupt,
This
but let
was
me
so
just tell
great.
Miss Nebraska that I want to be her birthing coach when she decides to have
Right?
that
Call us,
baby.
all of us.
Yes,
We're gonna be
we'll
Yes.
in
be
the chat.
there.
We got you.
That's so exciting. Well, I appreciate you all. I really did enjoy this, and I'm actually gonna raid out. So if anybody wants to stay, I'm gonna try to raid out. I believe I can do it, even though it's linked to StreamYard. So you guys can get some grooves, some vibes, some tunes. And also you can check me out on Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern on DJ Mel G's stream. We do astrology talk on Mondays at 7 p.m. So if you're interested in that, come through, get some laughs and some knowledge.
That's it.
And that's it. But I appreciate you ladies and
It was
everyone in the
nice
chat.
talking to you, ladies, and meeting you guys.
Hi,
Oh,
nice.
you too.
This was great. You need to do this more often, love.
No, I definitely will, because you put the idea in
Yes.
my head. I'm like, I want to get on here and talk. And it's nice to have
Hmm.
people in the chat, but sometimes, the context can get a little misconstrued, and it's nice to be able to actually sit and talk. So I'm definitely going to do this more
Oh
often.
yeah, and
So thank you
definitely,
for putting that out
definitely
there.
tap in. Like if you guys haven't already, Miss Nebraska,
Yes.
she's been, I've been tapping into her since her first stream. She's a great personality. Her and DJ No Spinna, she's another chat stream
Mm-hmm.
They're great. They're both crazy.
Miss Nebraska's fun. Every
You
time
get
she's in
some
my chat, I'm
there
cracking up.
you get some valuable advice and information from both of them, because they get panels together as well, and they cut up, so they're actually my tools as well,
The
so
best part.
exactly.
Thank you, Michelle Renee, for those biddies. I appreciate you. So sweet. All right, I'm gonna raid out, and again, I appreciate you all, and look forward to more of this. All right, take care,
Bye.
Happy
everybody.
Sunday,
Mwah.
everyone.
Love
Big
you,
blessings.
ladies.
Peace, my sisters.
Happy holidays.
All right.
Yes, happy holidays.
All right, I'm gonna make this work. Here we go.